right, so the purpose of this seminar and what we consider our big takeaways is we want you to be comfortable using our ROC website. We want you to also avoid the errors and what we call deficiencies when submitting a new application. So again, we'll be taking a deeper dive on these common mistakes. But if you have questions, if you're already kind of in the process and gathering all of your information and are kind of hitting a roadblock or have questions, definitely ask us. And of course, we are available to ask your questions. So not only during this seminar, but after. So Jesse is providing all of our direct contact information in the chat. So please, that's our phone number, our email address, and that includes Julie and Maggie, who lead the licensing department. So after the seminar, if you still have some follow-up questions, do not hesitate to reach out. So common application errors, we'll go into this at length, but what are those? We have 5 that are very common. They have to do with bonds, qualifying party or QP experience, identification, testing, and background checks. So later in the seminar, Maggie will go into these in detail, but this is what we find that our applicants get hung up on and can slow down the application process. So very important. And of course, we'll use this red top 5 symbol here to emphasize how important those are as we go along in the seminar. How to submit a license application. So online, our online portal is a great tool and one that we are actually in the process of updating even better. So right now we are actually going through our update process, and for the remainder of the week, our portal will be down, but it will be back up on the 15th. And at that point in time, you'll be able to go in there, create your login information, and submit applications. Our team has spent a lot of time testing and working through this process so that it is as seamless as possible. And it is a very great tool for you to use, not only when you first apply, but down the road, once you become licensed and have to renew. So currently, we have about 90% of our applicants applying through the portal. Again, it's convenient. You just make your way through the portal. I would say it definitely beats coming down to our office. We like to see our contractors, of course, but we know you're busy and we are only open 8 to 5 and by appointment only. So this is the best way to submit your information. So the first step that you'll need to do is you'll need to create your account. And what do you need to create that portal account? You will need your authorized representative's information. So that includes name, date of birth, valid email address. Of course, that is going to be very important because when you set up an account, email address communication is key, a preferred method of contact. And then, of course, as you do when you create online credentials, you'll have to choose some security questions. In regards to your business entity or your company, we'll need the type of entity, the name of your company or the name of the sole proprietor and partners, the Arizona Corporation Commission file number, if you're an LLC or corporation, again, a valid email address, we can't emphasize that enough, your physical business address, and a phone number. So be sure to have all of that information. Our portal can be found via our website here, and Jesse will also put that in the chat. Hoping that all of you have already visited our website. And then from the homepage, you're going to click on My Account. And then you can create an online portal account. So I'm going to show a short video here. So let me just make sure you can hear it.
In this video, you'll learn how to create an account for the ROC Online Customer Portal. To create an account, visit www.roc.az.gov and click the My Account menu option. In the drop-down box next to the question, "Do you have an account already?" select the "No, I need to register" option and fill in your information below. The personal information you enter should be your full legal name and date of birth as it appears on your government-issued ID. You should also enter your correct contact information in case we need to contact you about your account. When choosing security questions and answers, make sure to choose something that will be easy for you to remember. After clicking the Register for the Customer Portal button, you will need to confirm your email account before you can log in. To confirm your email account, check your email and look for an email from Arizona Registrar of Contractors. If you do not see the email in your inbox, please check your spam folder. In the email, please click the link to confirm your email and finish registering for your account. The link will return you to the ROC website. Next, click the Go to the ROC Customer Portal button, where you will be able to log into your ROC Online Customer Portal account with the email address and password you previously selected. If you have issues logging into your account, please do not attempt to create a second account. Please give us a call during normal business hours at 877-692-9762.
All right, and then we have another short video on how you connect your business to the account.
In this video, you will learn how to connect an existing license and business to your ROC Online Customer Portal account. Once logged in, you can add the business entity to that account by going to the Licenses and Accounts button from the dashboard. On the Licenses and Accounts page, follow the steps and add the business entity. When searching for your business entity, do not add any punctuation, and less is more. You only need to type a couple of words to find your business name. As you can see from this example, the business name I'm searching for is ZZZ John ROC Test Account. But I only need to search for ZZZ John to find my business. You can contact the licensing rep to ask for more information by emailing licensing@roc.az.gov or by giving us a call during normal business hours at 877-692-9762.
All right, so both of those videos are available on our website if you need to revisit those. Once you need next week, once you can visit those in order to set up your account and connect your business. All right, so next I am going to hand it over to Maggie, who will walk us through filling out the application. Maggie.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we're going to go through filling out your application. So the first thing you need to determine is who is going to be the applicant. So in Arizona, you can apply as a couple different types. So we have the option to apply as a sole proprietorship or a partnership. You can also apply as a corporation or an LLC. You can also apply as a trust. So as you can see here, if you're applying as a sole proprietorship or a partnership, we would need exactly as it appears on your IDs. For a corporation or an LLC, we would need the applicant would be exactly as it is filed with the Arizona Corporation Commission. So your entity name would need to match that. And if you are filing as a trust, then we would need the name to appear exactly as it appears on the trust certificate. Also DBAs. So you can use a DBA. And you can contract under that DBA only if it is a ROC approved name. That DBA will need to be listed on your application and on your bond. So a lot of times we see that deficiency there, or that error there is you'll submit your bond, but if you have a DBA, that DBA also needs to be included on that bond. If Also, we do recommend that you register your DBA with the Arizona Secretary of State. You do also have the option to add, remove, or change your DBA at any time. The next thing you're going to need to determine is which license classification you are going to be applying for. So we do have quite a few different license classifications. They're going to be divided by whether that work being performed is going to be residential work, commercial work, or you can also obtain a dual classification, which is going to be a combination of the residential and commercial. Once you've kind of determined which classification as far as residential or commercial, then you need to look at the scope of work that you're going to be doing. We do have a list of our license classifications and the descriptions on our website. If you've looked through the descriptions and you still aren't sure of which classification best fits your scope of work, then you can submit to us what is called a scope determination request. That form can be found on our website, and you can fill it out and submit it right to us. Our scope committee will then look at your scope of work and then issue you a letter determining which classification would best fit that work. So once you've determined which classification you're going to apply for and how you're going to apply, the next thing you need to identify is your qualifying party. So your qualifying party is going to be the person who will need to take and pass your statutes and rules exam, the trade exam, if it is applicable for the license you're applying for, and also your qualifying party needs to have that experience history. So whether it is hands-on or supervising of that specific scope of work. We are also going to ask that your qualifying party provide us with personal information such as date of birth, social security number, a valid and legible ID, an address, contact information like phone number, email, also title and position, percentage of ownership if they also own a percent of the company. And then another one of those top big 5 deficiencies is a valid background check that has been completed within the last 90 days. You will want to make sure that you visit our website so that you find that background check link, as we do have a specific background check vendor that you will need to use. All right, for your exams, so there are a couple options as far as waiving your exams. So if you are an in-state applicant, you can waive your statutes and rules exam if you were a qualifying party and you were named on an Arizona license within the last 5 years. If you were named on a Arizona license of the same classification in which you are now applying for within the last 5 years, then you could also waive potentially that trade exam. Again, that is for in-state applicants who have been previously listed on an Arizona license. If you are an out-of-state applicant, you cannot waive that statutes and rules exam. However, we are really excited that we do now offer the computer-based statutes and rules exam. So if you are an out-of-state applicant, It's, a great exam. It's very helpful to go through and take that exam. And then you submit your passing certificate to us. If you are an out-of-state applicant, and you were named on a comparable license within the last 5 years, then you can submit to us what is an out-of-state waiver. And we would then we would check that with that out-of-state agency, and we would verify if that trade could possibly be waived. As this just goes over our new changes to our examinations. So we now use a company called Ambition, and they are going to be issuing the Statutes and Rules training course and exam. So this is an online training course and exam that you will take. You'll watch some videos, go through some important information, and then take a quick quiz. That is done specifically through Ambition. There is a link to that information on our website, and their contact information is on our website as well. This is just pertaining to the Statutes and Rules exam. For the trade and solar exams, we are still using a company called PSI. They do offer online or in-person proctored exams. So their information is also on our website as well. So the Statutes and Rules exam. So the Statutes and Rules exam, again, is administered through Ambition. It is a training course and exam that covers our contracting laws in Arizona. It is an online only exam. It is self-paced. You can save it, return it, and come back to it at your convenience. The cost has changed. It is $54, and there are not going to be any materials that you have to purchase, but you will download them within the course. Again, like we said before, the link for that is found on our website. It can be found under applying for a license in that past examinations section. You can also see which license classifications are going to require that trade exam also under our website as well. For trade exams and solar exams, this exam is going to cover the specifics to that trade that you are applying for. These trade and solar exams can be offered online or in person, and they are offered by PSI. So their information is also on our website as well. These are a supervised exam, and they are timed. The cost is going to be $66 for the trade and $40 for the solar exams. We do have some information on the next slide that we'll cover in regards to the study materials for your trade exams. All right, so for the trade exams, you will find on our website, under applying for a license, you will find a candidate information bulletin. Within this bulletin on pages 13, starting at page 13, you're going to want to select the specific classification in which you are applying for. Once you find that specific classification, you're going to click on the hyperlink, and it's going to take you to the content outline for your specific trade exam. This bulletin is also going to include the references that you will want to obtain that you can use for your trade exam. All right, so other than your qualifying party, who else is going to be required to be named on the application? So overall, we require that anybody who holds 25% or more be listed on the application. Specifically for LLCs, we're looking for all members if it is a member-managed LLC, all managers if it is a manager-managed LLC, and again, that same any owner of 25% or more. For a corporation, we would need any presidents, vice presidents, any officers would need to be listed on there, as well as any directors. And again, anybody who is an owner of at least 25% or more. If your entity that is applying is a tiered entity, then we will require that you submit to us a organizational chart. So this would be something that you're going to create on your own. We do provide an example of what you would want your tiered entity organizational chart to look like. Just a couple of pointers here. You're going to want to make sure that the names and addresses of all tiers are listed on there. All owners of 25% or more. Also the organizational chart will need to be signed by an authorized representative, and it will also need to include the attestation that you'll see in that bottom right-hand corner that says no persons or entity other than those listed owns 25% or more. So once you've determined all those additional people who will need to be listed on your application, there's a number of things that they will need to provide to us as well. A lot of this information, such as phone numbers, email address, residential or business addresses, title, ownership, percentage, those will all be included in the application form itself. And then you will additionally need to provide us with the valid and legible driver's license, as well as a background check within the last 90 days. Again, using that specific background check vendor on our website, there is a link for that on our website as well. All right. So I know we gave you a ton of information, but just to go over it one more time, who is the qualifying party? Qualifying party is a regularly employed by the licensee, is the person who is going to be taking all of those required exams and has that knowledge, skills, and experience to supervise or perform the work under the license. Additionally, who else needs to be listed on the license? Like we said, anybody who owns 25% or more of the entity. For those LLCs, we're going to need members or managers depending on whether the LLC is member or manager managed. For corporations, we're going to need any corporate officers and directors. Also, making sure that any of those individuals who are named on the Arizona Corporation Commission will need to also be included in that application. And then some of those big things to make sure that those individuals provide the completed section of the application, which includes their information, valid and legible IDs, and those background checks that have been completed within the last 90 days. All right, so disclosures. So Arizona law requires that every person named on a license have good character and reputation. So there are some issues regarding good character that can cause a license to be delayed or denied. For those reasons, all persons named on the application must disclose if they have been named on a license in any state that was revoked or currently suspended, any unlicensed activity, such as citations or convictions, or any criminal history, such as any felony convictions or pending charges. So criminal history documentation. So if you have a felony conviction or a pending charge, it does not automatically mean that you're going to be denied. So we will require, though, that you submit to us some documentation so that it can be reviewed, and then from there we can make the determination. So some of those required documents that we will ask for would be the indictment or complaint, the court's findings or a plea agreement, documentation of your sentence, any kind of satisfaction of restitution, or the order to restore civil rights. Some optional documentations that you can submit as well would be like letters of reference, if you completed any kind of addiction recovery or other relevant program. Also, any personal, professional, or educational achievements after the conviction. And those items can be submitted with your application. All right, so next you're gonna submit your application with all of your documents and fees. We're gonna cover some additional documents that you're going to submit with your application. One of our top 5 deficiencies is bonds. So we have a couple different types of bonds that can be submitted with your application. Those would be surety bonds, cash bonds, or a signed certificate of deposit. There is a minimum coverage that will need to be required. That is going to be based on the estimated volume of the work that is going to be performed. And then that's also going to be determined based on the license classification that you are applying for. So our most common bond that we see is a surety bond. You can acquire a surety bond from any company that is licensed to offer surety products in Arizona. You can also submit a cash bond. With a cash bond, you would have to submit the full amount by cash, money order, or cashier's check to the registrar. You can also get a certificate of deposit that you can submit as well. So it's really important to remember we do have an example of a bond that we're going to show you here. So it's really important to make sure that your bond form is filled out correctly. And we're going to go over some of those big points in completing that bond form here next. So some of the big things that we're looking for on that bond form are going to be making sure that it has a bond number, making sure that it has the full legal name of the entity or applicant. So if you are applying as a sole proprietor, then you will need to make sure that your full legal name as it is shown on your ID is listed on the bond. If you are applying as an entity, your entity name would need to be on that bond. If you have a DBA, you also want to make sure that that DBA is included on there, as we see a lot of times, you know, the errors in the bonds come from the DBA not being included. Also, you'll want to make sure that your license classification and description is listed on the bond form. You can get your exact classification and description from our website as well, if you want to make sure it's put in there correctly to avoid, you know, that application sitting a little bit longer because of the corrections we need. Also, your penal sums. If you are applying for a dual license, meaning commercial and residential, then as you can see on the example, you will need to list those out separately. That is another big correction that we see, is it's just, you know, the total amount. But for those dual commercial and residential licenses, you need to list those out separately. What covers what covers residential and what covers commercial. Also, we need to see that effective date on the bond and the sign and seal date there. If the bond is older than 6 months, we're going to request that a full force and effect letter be submitted with it as well. We are also looking for your signature on there, as well as the bond needs to be notarized and it needs to have a visible seal. So if the seal is not visible, sometimes we see that in scanning docs or, you know, because we are submitting things electronically, we may request that you resend that seal to us so we can visibly see that seal. So you can do, Ashley asked, can you put multiple license classifications on the bond? So you can submit, let me see if I say this correctly. You can submit the same bond for multiple classifications, but only at the initial time of application, and it has to be sent at the same time. The applications have to be worked simultaneously.
In this break, Maggie, would you also like to answer the other question that we have regarding reciprocity for local?
Yeah. Let's see here. We have a question. We are a licensed low voltage contractor in the state of California and Nevada. Does Arizona offer reciprocity for this class of licensee? So we do not offer direct reciprocity. However, we would ask you to submit a an out-of-state waiver and provide us with both your California and your Nevada license classifications. From there, we can confirm whether or not those classifications meet the correct classification that you are applying for here. So for example, low voltage, if you have a low voltage in California and then you're applying for a roofing license here, obviously we wouldn't waive that. However, if you had your low voltage in California and you had your qualifying party and that same qualifying party is now going to be listed on your low voltage license here, then you could waive that experience and the trade exam as long as you submitted that out-of-state license waiver form.
Those were great questions. Please keep them coming and put them in the chat.
Yeah. All right. So we'll go back to calculating your bond coverage here. So again, like we said, it's going to be based on the estimated volume for the year per license. So for example here, you can see if we had a CR, so a commercial and a residential specialty contractors license, then you would need to cover both of those minimums. So you would need to cover the $4,250 in the residential coverage and the $2,500 in the commercial coverage.
We do have a question from Corey. What if working on personally owned properties like septic tanks and carpentry, are bonds still necessary?
Yes. So in order to have an active license, you have to have an active bond on your license. If you do not have an active bond on your license, then you are not able to contract.
We also have another question from Al.
At what point should you forward the out-of-state waiver? So your waiver should be submitted with your license application. If your waiver is not submitted with your application and you also don't submit a trade exam, then your application is going to be sent back to you. So you definitely want to make sure that you submit those waivers with your application. If for any reason the waiver wasn't able to be approved, then your reviewer would contact you and discuss the option of taking the exam. All right. So the next thing we're going to go over is workers' compensation. So workers' compensation, just to keep it simple, if you have employees, you need to have workers' compensation. So we will require that you provide us with either your exemption or your coverage information. So there are a couple options for exemptions. If you are a single member LLC without any employees, if you are a 50-50 two-member LLC without any employees, and if you are a sole proprietorship, then we would not require you provide us with that info. You would be considered as exempt. There is a box on your application for you to indicate the exemption. So please make sure that if we don't require you because you don't have employees, you still need to mark your exemption on the application. All right. There are some additional documents that you may end up needing to submit with your application. So if your license is going to cover solar, you will need to submit a solar warranty. There is an example of that on our website. You may also need to cancel a previous license or inactivate a previous license. Those items should be submitted with the application, as well as if your qualifying party needs to disassociate from a prior license, you would need to submit that. You would want to submit that with your application as well. Bond question. Would this apply the same? Did you put this in there, Jesse? Sorry.
I did. That was sent to me
Okay.
privately, and so
Okay.
you may need to add some or ask some additional.
Would this apply the same way if you were starting your own HVAC and electrical business, or is this the bond for that type or trade different? Does anybody have any more info? So in short, if you're starting your own HVAC business and electrical business, you would need to make sure that you had that your bond covered the minimum for each of those. So if you wanted to put them on the same bond form, that's fine, but you would need to indicate the minimum for your HVAC and the minimum for your electrical. So they would have to still be listed on there separately. Workers' comp. If the corporation is the applicant for the license and has no employees, does that fall into the exemption? So we would be looking for if your tiered entity does not end at a person, we would be looking for that ownership exemption. If your applicant, so if the owner of your applicant is an entity, is a company, and they don't have any employees, and they are like 100% LLC, or 100% without employees, then we would just need that exemption marked on there. It's in a box where it will ask you if you are exempt because you are 100% owned without employees. So you just need to make sure to mark that exemption on there. All right, so the last big part of the application is going to be those application fees. So you can see here, there are going to be, it kind of gives you a breakdown of what you are paying. So there is the actual application fee, the license fee, and then for those residential licenses, the recovery fund assessment fee. So it's going to be based on which classification you are applying for. And then again, just going over those big 5 common deficiencies, those bonds, making sure that the bond is submitted with the application, making sure that it is notarized and has the bond seal on there, wanting to make sure that it's filled out correctly. So if you have a DBA, include your DBA. Make sure your classification is on there, the description of the classification, and then make sure you cover those minimum requirements for the bond coverage, as well as identifying what is residential and what is commercial coverage for the dual classifications. Also, your experience, qualifying party experience, needs to be written by the qualifying party, and it needs to relate to the license that you are applying for. For your bigger general contractors licenses, we are looking like a B1 or a B. We are looking for those ground up builds. We want to know what you supervised and what you supervised or what kind of work you did hands on. For IDs, making sure that your IDs are valid and legible. Also testing, making sure that you submit your statutes and rules certificate or your waiver if you are on a prior license. For your trade exams, if you're coming from out of state, make sure to submit those waivers again. Otherwise, submitting those passing results with your exam. Also, background checks. There is a link to our background check on the website. You will have to use that specific background check vendor, and those need to be valid within the last 90 days for all persons named on the application.
Hey, Maggie, it looks like we have another question in the chat.
Okay, let's see. I have a CCB license in Oregon. They required passing the NASCLA test. Does Arizona recognize this to be used as a waiver? So I'm not exactly sure what a CCB license is, Jeff. We do accept NASCLA for a couple of our license classifications. So if you wanted to email me, Jesse, Okay, what kind of contractor's license? Just a general, like residential, general commercial? If you wanted to email me your license information for Oregon, I can look into that and verify whether or not we could use that as a waiver. Also, we do accept NASCLA for a couple of our license classifications, as long as it is within the last 2 years. Otherwise, you can submit that waiver to me and I can research that for you and let you know if we would accept that.
Awesome. Thanks, Maggie.
Yeah.
All right. So definitely some great questions in the chat today. Please don't be shy. If you have some other questions you would like to ask, that is what the team is here for. So while we await some final questions, I'll just remind everybody to check your email after today's seminar. Later today, we will send you a YouTube link that includes today's presentation, as well as a copy of the presentation slides. And then also, Jesse sends out a survey. So we ask that you take a few moments to fill that out. We want your feedback. We want to tailor these so that they are informative and help you through the application process. And then Jesse will also provide all of our contact information again, so that, again, you have all of our email addresses and phone numbers, including Maggie, who you heard from earlier, and Julie, our Chief of Licensing. Any questions we can help you with, that is what we want to do. We'll also have those links to the online portal demo. And then we do ask that next week, when you go in to complete your application, that you check the box that you attended this seminar, trying to gather information to make sure that attendees go through that process and that they had all of their information. So if you can mark that, that would be great. And so right now, if you've got any final questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Jay, yes. So the links will be available to you in the follow-up email that Jesse sends out. So we'll have links to those videos that we played, and then today's presentation, so that if you wanted to take another listen, you can do that. So we will hang out a little bit longer, a couple of minutes. If you have any final questions,